A major legal setback has hit President Donald Trump's trade agenda after a federal court in New York struck down his administration's new global tariffs, ruling that the president exceeded the authority granted by Congress. And in a split 2-1 decision, the three-judge panel of the U.S. Court of International Trade declared the 10% worldwide tariffs invalid and unauthorized by law. The court said that the Trump administration could not legally impose such sweeping import duties under Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974, the law it relied on after an earlier Supreme Court defeat earlier this year. The tariffs had been introduced as a temporary measure after the Supreme Court in February blocked broader double-digit tariffs that Donald Trump had imposed on nearly every country, using emergency powers under the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or also known as IEEPA. Donald Trump had argued that America's long-running trade deficit constituted a national emergency. But the Supreme Court ruled that the law did not authorize him to impose global tariffs in that manner. And following that setback, the administration turned to Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974 in order to impose a temporary 10% tariffs on imports worldwide. And those tariffs were scheduled to remain in place until July 24. However, the Court of International Trade has now ruled that even these revised tariffs went beyond the president's legal powers. And the majority opinion stated that the U.S. Constitution gives Congress the authority to impose taxes and tariffs, and while lawmakers may delegate limited powers to the president, and those powers are not unlimited. The judges concluded that the administration's actions exceeded what Congress had authorized under the law. One judge on the panel dissented, arguing that the president should have broader authority over tariffs and trade measures, especially in matters involving economic policy and international trade. And the case was brought to several small businesses along with the state of Washington. And among the plaintiffs were spice company Burlap and Barrel and toy maker Basic Fun, which argued that the tariffs were harming their businesses by increasing import cost. And after the ruling, Basic Fun CEO Jeff Foreman welcomed the verdict, saying that the companies had fought back and won, and for now the ruling directly applies only to the plaintiffs involved in the case. And legal experts say that it remains unclear whether other businesses across the United States will still be required to continue paying the tariffs while the legal battle unfolds. Notably, the Donald Trump administration is expected to appeal the decision immediately, and the case will first move to the U.S. Courts of Appeals for the Federal Circuit in Washington and could eventually return to the Supreme Court for a final ruling. Trade experts say that the latest judgment could encourage more importers and businesses to challenge the tariffs in court and seek refunds for duties that they have already paid. Legal analysts also believe that the ruling represents another significant obstacle for Donald Trump's broader effort to reshape U.S. trade policy through aggressive tariff measures. And despite the court defeats, the administration is already exploring alternative ways to impose new trade restrictions, and the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative is currently investigating whether 16 trading partners, including China, the European Union, and Japan, are overproducing goods and unfairly harming American manufacturers by lowering global prices. And at the same time, another investigation is examining whether around 60 economies ranging from Nigeria to Norway and representing nearly 99% of U.S. imports are doing enough in order to prevent the trade of goods allegedly produced through forced labor. While the legal fight over tariffs continues, the latest ruling has once again raised major questions about the limits of presidential power on trade and the extent to which the White House can act without direct approval from Congress. That's all for now. Stay tuned to the Savera for more updates. Do like, comment, and subscribe to the channel.